going to mute for now.
And we're
Yes.
live.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Truth Talks Live, a production of the Truth Movement New Brunswick. It's been a few weeks since we've been here. Little news. I don't know if I've shared it here or not. I am a leadership, seeking to be a leadership contender for the New Brunswick New Democratic Party here. So my time is obviously a lot more limited. So instead of doing shows every week, we're getting to it every couple of weeks now, and we are so excited. Well, actually, first of all, I'd like to welcome our regular panelist. Beverly is a new panelist with us. Tonight's her first episode as a regular panelist. Welcome, Beverly. And Courtney is with us in the background as well. She'll be joining us late. And I want to introduce, I'm so excited about this show. We tried to do it a month or so ago, but had a scheduling conflict. And Amour is here with us today. We're super excited. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's super thrilling to have you here. So one of the things that, I wanted to bring up for discussion, and I'm hoping that you can, from your perspective, just help maybe educate us a little bit, the general public or people that just don't understand. Like myself, even I understand the, different gender, identity. I 100% support it. Yet sometimes I still accidentally will say she or he instead of they or them, and certainly not on purpose, but it's, a lifetime of training my mind as well. So I was hoping that we could maybe talk about that just a little bit, but also one of the main reasons that, well, not main reasons, I mean, you're obviously fantastic and fabulous and gorgeous, and but we also, you and I share a couple things in common. We both are members of the LGBTQ2 plus community, and we also have dealt with mental illness as well. So I am very, very happy that somebody is here to really talk openly about this this subject, this issue. It's something that I've even been advised by counselors. I was advised by a political strategist a couple days ago, not to mention any mental health challenges I've ever had in the past. And I know people are well-intentioned when they say that, but it's really helping perpetuate the stigma about mental illness, because we need to talk about it, and people need to see people like me and people like you, Amour, that that it's possible to have mental illness and still have a successful, productive, wonderful life, and up days and, bad days and good days, amongst those. So maybe you could just share a bit of with us, a bit of your journey. I know you were also, had to, and I'm so sorry, undergo conversion therapy techniques through your church. So why don't you just give us a little bit of your background and what led you to where you are here today?
Fantastic. Well, yes, great points addressed, and we were going to touch base on those certainly, because I think that as a society and as a community specifically, not looking at the entire country, sometimes that can be so much. We can just focus our attention on our own communities, our own families, our own lives. And then that becomes a little bit less grand and less over stimulated and taking on the world. Start with yourself, and then let that light shine is my attitude towards things, and then it just grows from there. So my journey, I'll address at the beginning here. So pronouns. I am just going to say right off the bat, anybody watching and listening, I am not an expert at this. I am just an individual with lived experiences. I will explain my identification and why I identify as such, and then that might give some people some insight as to exactly why some other individuals identify as he, she, they, them, or even non-binary. So there's different terms that I think people get scared and confused about, because I will say, growing up, I grew up United Pentecostal. It was he, she. That's it. There was no in between. There was no spectrum. Okay. And I think we'll put that word out right out at the bat, because it is a spectrum, right? So you can have individuals who identify as one day a he, and they might present themselves as a male. Then you might have an individual that same individual the next day identifies as a she, and they present themselves as female. And so all this is doing is trying to find what makes you happy, right? So this is your life. If you want to identify as he one day, she the next, and they, them on the third, you go right to town, because in the end of the day, it is your life. And if that's what makes you comfortable, then you do what makes you comfortable. Now, on the flip side of that, when we are engaging with those individuals, and some people engage with me, I don't personally, and that's again a personal thing, not by any means can people take this and apply it to just every person. But for me, I don't react with a negative feeling inside if somebody does slip up, or if somebody calls me with the wrong pronoun, because I understand from my own background how challenging it is to rewire those neurons and rewire those thinking processes. But I will encourage everybody listening and watching that you do ask politely right at the very beginning of the conversation. If you do not know, ask their name. Their name, because in the end of the day, if you call them by their name, you don't have to usually worry about pronouns coming afterwards. Just try to remember the name. And then as you get to know the individual, you can ask them, listen, I just want to say, I want to be open, and I don't want to offend you, and I want to respect you. What do you identify as? And that's all you have to say. And they will generally, the person that you speak to will generally enlighten you as to what their identification is. And now I get it. I can see how it can be frustrating, because you know what? Some days I don't even know myself. At the end of the day, I don't know if I'm coming or going, left, right, up or down, sideways, or here to be. But in the end of the day, I do know what makes me happy. And everybody generally has that little inside feeling that goes, no, I just don't like when people assume that I'm a guy, or I don't like the flip side when they assume I'm a girl. And so sometimes if you don't identify with either one of those rigid identifications, remember that spectrum word we brought up, you don't have to be just one or two. You can be in the between. You can be more feminine. You can be more masculine. It can be a little bit of both. It can be a little bit of neither. So in the end of the day, I always like to say we are human beings all trying to get through this life together. At the end of the day, I always try and ask right off the bat, what do you identify with? And then I just try to train myself as I move forward with that person in our relationship to just respect them by pronouncing their name correctly and using the correct pronouns when addressing them, talking to them, or referring to them. Now, again, when people ask me, well, what does it mean when somebody wants to be they, them? So as we were talking before, some days when I'm Mitchell Goodine, without the makeup, without the hair and the glam, I identify as he, straight off the bat. But if somebody says, hey, girl, or hello there, hun, I will respond as well. But that, again, is a personal decision. And it's always best to lead with air of caution. Because I think for people who have grown up only identifying as a woman or a man, or it's so much easier to understand, oh, well, what else would you call me? Because that's all that anyone's ever known for their life. But as we grow and evolve as a society, we're learning that there are different people within the spectrum. Gender is fluid. It's changing. It's like water. It can go up, it can go down. It can be rough. It can be calm. And that's all it is just to respect that individual the best you can. I think just by having the rigidity of only agreeing or understanding or believing that there is just he, she, that's when we get into trouble. Right. Now, that won't be changed overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. And as we learn and grow as society and as individuals, we learn that parameter is changing as well. And so that's really what I've taken. I have friends who identify as they, them, only that. And they prefer to be they, them. So if I were to refer to them as she or he, it would be insulting to them. Right. And so I have myself slipped up many times where I would be identifying with an individual who I grew up knowing as a she. But now that they've been able to understand, and with love and acceptance and the safe spaces we provide now, they're able to explore deeper inside themselves and actually say, you know what? I've always felt there was something else to me. And now I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna see how that feels. Like putting on a new jacket or your a new favorite sweater. It just feels comfortable. It feels like it fits. It feels like it belongs on you. And so that can be just as easy as I can explain it with pronouns. I encourage anyone who is listening, and I'm might be just confusing and making this into a huge quagmire situation. Research, look up online and research, read experiences, read stories, but as well, most importantly, because those are stories from those individuals, just simply ask. Just ask.
Yeah.
I always appreciate people with open hearts coming in and saying, Miss Moore, I don't want to offend you, but do you identify as she, her right now, or do you identify as they, them? And I usually respond with, well, I'm presenting as a female, but because I am male as well inside, that they, them is very appropriate as well too. So they, them is bridging that gap sometimes where you don't want to just be on the spectrum as one or the other. Sometimes instead of 1, 2, you want to be 3. Oh,
Sorry.
no,
That makes so much sense. Thank you.
of
Because I
course.
was even wondering, like, because I knew, from our previous discussions that sometimes you're identified as they, them, or he.
Yeah,
So that, it makes complete sense that now you're presenting as she, or
that's
identifying as she, or they,
that's
or hey girl.
that's right.
And
And
otherwise you're Mitchell or he. But if somebody were to call you they, or whatever, then that's fine with you at any time. And this is
exactly,
just
I
your
think
personal experience.
exactly. That's the pinnacle point. If anybody can take away from what I just rambled, just make sure that you ask the individual what they prefer.
They prefer,
So
yes.
that's the biggest thing, because in the end of the day, you can't go wrong with what they give you.
Right.
But you can't go wrong with what you assume.
Yes.
And now
Assumptions.
I have been on that stance myself, where I've assumed by what society has told me because of maybe earrings or makeup or heels or outfits. Because I, as Mitchell, will wear heels, earrings, makeup. I'll have my hair up in a bun, and I work at Marshall's, so I have a lot of people coming and going. And I have heard so many times, "Oh, we'll just go ask that girl over there." And instead of correcting them at that moment, I simply smile, respond. And of course, where I am at work, I don't want to engage within where it could become a potential
Right.
conflict, or make them feel embarrassed.
Right.
There's a time and a place, but I feel that if you do have that drive to always ask in the end of the day, because if they were to come up to me and say, sorry, do you identify as they, them, or he, she, or what do you identify with? I would explain, and then we can continue the conversation right off the bat from there. So it doesn't have to be that awkward, ooh, walking on eggshells. It's just simply making sure that you want to talk to the person from your heart and not from your assumptions.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. So the next topic maybe we'll dive into here before we move on to like questions from Beverly and whenever Courtney joins us. Um, Mental illness, mental health awareness. Um, so you also do a speaking series with the Canadian Mental Health Association, I believe it is as well, which I believe you're going to right after this. So we'll be like
Right.
promptly ending at 6:45, and I think it's wonderful that you do that. And I love that you are open about it. And just in the bio that I provided for you, well, you provided to me and I provided for the public. You have talked about being forced to undergo conversion therapy techniques. I can't even imagine that. I have quite a religious family myself, and nowhere near the experiences that you've had. But I've found, organized religion at least has been more harmful to me than good. Uh, from my own life experience. But as far as mental health goes, like I had a very serious, very serious depression throughout 2019 and into some of 2020. And I did attempt suicide myself. And again, like I've been advised by strategists and people not to say that, but my journey through public health, my journey through mental illness has been documented publicly through my blogs, through my platforms, through the show. So, it's been a very public journey from illness to wellness. And, I have my bad days, of course, still, but I'm just, I've never gotten back to that point where I was in 2019, 2020, thank God. But people try to stick you with it. People try to use it against you. They weaponize the fact that you've had it before. And even, this political strategist advising me the other day to not mention mental illness, again, it just perpetuates the problem. It encourages you to feel shame about it, to feel like there's something wrong with me. Why, I shouldn't, oh my God, I should hide this. I'm flawed. I'm, not quite the same as everybody else. And I don't deserve to be an MLA or a leader of a party or whatever. Like that's the message that I hear when people say that to me, that I should, keep it to myself. And, and I even, my therapist at one point, in 2019 also told me not to mention it to work, to anybody, to keep it private because it'll be used against me. So just maybe throw it to you there. Glad you're very vocal and open about it. And I think we need to be to help other people. It's not about us.
Oh, well, I first want to say thank you. Thank you from behalf of everybody suffering through whatever they may be suffering through. To be able to hear a success story, to be able to hear another individual be real and open about it. It's one of the main things that connected with me. As an individual who grew up in a United Pentecostal family and a very small community, like many people watching probably are, New Brunswick is notorious for having 8 churches and 1 supermarket and maybe 200 people. So it's hard to identify yourself from beyond that, because when growing up, that might be all you know. So unfortunately, when my sexuality started to present itself more, I guess, aggressively in my life, not forwarding, more, I guess, out front, and I was able to hide it as much. My family started to realize that this wasn't a phase. It wasn't just something I was trying on, that this was something that was here to stay. And it became apparent that they needed to somehow rectify that, because unfortunately, according to their gospel and the church that I attended, homosexuality is a sin. And so one of the pinnacle sins, sin is sin allegedly in God's eyes. However, they seem to really put that one as a special spice in people's lives. Like it's an extra little hot sauce that you really shouldn't dabble into. And in the end of the day, they registered me with a health provider in Woodstock who brought me down in the basement of the church, not my church, but the church in Woodstock. And I'm not going to say any names, because the point of the story isn't to then have a picket fence war against individuals. I battled those myself. And the main thing I always want people to take away from my experience is that it's not okay to put your values and beliefs forced upon somebody else at the sacrifice of their mental health. You can believe what you want to believe. I am not here to say that religion is horrible. If you want to follow that, that is your choice. But it's also my choice to be who I want to be. And if those two roads cross, by any means, do you have no right to run my car off the road because you don't think it should be there. No different than I don't have a right to run your car off the road. Although jumping gyms, I almost wanted to, but it's learning through my therapy. It's learning through the advice of educated individuals. It's learning through love that people taught me, that I was able to overcome that experience. Being told that because I'm gay, I need to take my thoughts and put them in a box and close my eyes and pray to God that he would cover that box with the anointing blood of the Lamb, and that it would somehow magically make those thoughts and feelings just poof, disappear. That is not possible. Let me tell you right now, if you were listening, it is not possible. I have listened to pastors and preachers get up on the pulpit and say success stories about how they've had young gay men come to them and admit that they're gay, seeking guidance. They prayed over them, they anointed them, and then all of a sudden they got a girlfriend. Do you know what that is? That is denial. And that individual is living a denied life. I believe that they could be bisexual, perhaps that they might be able to love both sexes, but to rob somebody of the potential chance to find their one and true love, whether it be boy, girl, they, them, that is not within your control. And I feel that it is up to me to be able to share my painful experience about how somebody tried to impose that very situation on me, and to tell me that I wasn't okay the way I was. And that if I wanted to live a successful, productive life, that I had to change my sinful ways. Well, I didn't change my sinful ways, honey. I wore them with glitter, glitz, and glam, and more colors than you can take in. Because
stunningly too.
And life is only, you get one shot at life. You get one shot. Why would you live it living a lie? Because you're scared of what your family might think. Trust me, I was terrified. I was absolutely mortified with myself until I was able to get out of that environment and come to university and to hear other people's stories, to talk to other people. And then they would look at me and go, "You what? You thought you were what? Well, so I don't care. Do you want to go get a salad? Want to go get a sub? Let's go get a drink." And it was just like as if I stopped the conversation with something that didn't need to be there. And that was the first time that anybody ever made me feel like my sexuality wasn't in their mind. Because in the end of the day, if they're not living with me in my bed, in my life, it doesn't matter what I am. Unless you are dating me, unless you're going to marry me, guess what? You don't have the right, and you don't need to know. And I think that's where we've been told is that, well, everybody deserves to know. No, unfortunately not. That, or actually, surprisingly not unfortunately not. It's very, very, very important that people know that your sexuality does not mean you wear it on your sleeve or on your chest or on your front. You don't have to scream it from the top of the mountains if you don't want to. But that also doesn't mean you have to hide it under a bushel. No, I'm gonna let it shine.
Yeah, that's a song.
That's right, you got it. That's right.
Oh, I love that you said that too. I think very, 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 important. I just feel like your positivity and your like just self-confidence and your glow, it's just literally contagious. I just literally want to sit here and smile the entire time. It's
good, then do that.
It's so wonderful, and I just love that you're yourself, and that and I am one of those people, like you mentioned, I'm bisexual, but I'm not one that advertises it I just did, but I mean, it's not like it plays a huge role. It's not used against me much at all. So and it's not. If somebody
does use it against you, it's because they're scared and they don't understand. And that's not for you to change your life for anybody else's problems. Because they can't get it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So it's not like I hide it. I just I realize that, other members of our community get judged more. I don't know. They face more challenges, I think. And I think even like the transgender community has one of the highest suicide rates, I think, out of anybody going. So, I recognize that my barrier in that, in that regard is not as great as others in this community experience as well. So maybe we'll just run to Courtney or pass it over to Courtney right now and see if she has any questions for Amour or observations.
Look, so amazing, I have to just say. Do you watch RuPaul's Drag Race? You must.
Well, actually, it's funny. I do, but it's not by any means on my television show every night. I know that a lot of people really love that show and identify with it, and that's great. But I always remind myself it is still Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's still produced. It's still a show that is there for ratings. And although they garnish it with true stories, values, and beliefs, there's a lot of prompting behind the scenes we don't see. There's a lot of little stories that they drop. A lot of performers have left that show realizing that it wasn't all it's cracked up to be. Now, does that mean that I'm against RuPaul? No, absolutely not. I stand for what they believe in and for what they've done for the community. But I just simply, just like when you're reading something on Facebook or on the internet, just make sure you know the research behind it. And it won't change maybe my opinion, but it just simply enforces a more well-rounded opinion about the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't know about that, so thank you.
Yeah, it's still a great show because it still challenges those barriers that we definitely need challenging. There's so many obstacles for the individuals of the LGBTQI plus two-spirited community, especially our individuals who are fighting, because if you don't identify as gay, heaven forbid if you identify as trans or non-binary, and that's the next hurdle that we still need to remind ourselves that this, we still have individuals that are still struggling against with race, ethnicity. So sexuality is another one of those carts on the train that we will slowly but surely make sure that it comes to the station where it deserves to be.
Yes. I think a lot more people nowadays are getting on board the idea that, your sexuality is more fluid. And I think that probably will, hopefully people will get on board with gender being more fluid soon. So I go to McGill, and recently, any phone call that they make to you, they ask at the beginning of the call, what are your pronouns?
Right.
I love, like, they say, like, I'm Beverly, my pronouns are she, her, can I ask your pronouns? So I'm just wondering if you have any opinion on doing that in real life with people that you meet, like, because you said, asking somebody what their name, but is it too blunt to ask a stranger, like, hi, what are your pronouns?
To be honest with you, no. I think that we should incorporate that slowly into conversations as you feel comfortable, of course, but I think that's something definitely needs to be on the forefront. Because at the end of the day, that's connected to their mental health.
Yeah.
That's connected to who they are. And for us to just look past that tells that person that that part of them doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That part of them isn't important enough for them to be identified correctly. And that slowly but surely, like a drop of water, will bury and burrow itself through any surface. And I think that just like when we are trying to remember, identifications and again, gender, and people can get a little bit overwhelmed. I understand, but hang on, keep going. It's worth it because there's nothing more important than being appropriate when you're talking to somebody, and to misgender somebody and to then mispronoun somebody, that right off the bat, you don't feel like you can open up to the individual. You don't feel like you can share anything with them because they can't even get your pronouns right. Then how are you going to then take the next step in conversation and values and beliefs exchange with those individuals? So you already are shutting down potential beautiful relationships that you can have with some amazing individuals that just simply want to live and be loved and just be identified for who they are.
Absolutely. I definitely, after, that experience, I definitely want to open more new conversations with, hi, I'm Courtney, my pronouns are she, her, could I ask your pronouns? Yeah. And just so everybody knows, Instagram has a new feature where you can put your pronouns underneath your username. So I've done that as well. So I think we could normalize having everybody's pronouns online, and that way it's just easier for everybody.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. Thank you for bringing that up again, because we are so social media savvy and people are addicted to that. Their identification is that. If they don't get 15 likes, well, God forbid. Oh, heaven, the market's like as if nobody loves you out there. Well, let me burst that little bubble. You are not the sum equivalency of what you get for social feedback and back. In the end of the day, what you do is for you. And if somebody else likes it, awesome. If they don't, who cares? It's not up to them. It's up to you. So I 100% agree with that. And as we were discussing before, I am even thinking of changing my drag name from Miss Amour Love to just Amour Love. Because when I started, again, I thought Miss would be elegant and ladylike. But to be fair, some ladies don't identify with that because they don't need to have that as an individual for them to link them to femininity, to motherhood, to sisterhood. So I think that that is another, again, just opening up that dialogue and having these conversations like we are today is slowly going to normalize it for those who want to learn. And those who don't want to learn, there's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be haters out there. There's always going to be negative feedback. So to try to win over everybody is impossible, but to educate everybody isn't.
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
the whole goal of this show and being here today as well. Thank you, Courtney. I think we should have time, I'm hoping anyway, to get back for a second round. We're going to move on to Beverly. And like as you had mentioned, you know, there's different factors that make people feel marginalized or disenfranchised or left out or whatever. And, you know, with us, it's the LGBTQ2 plus community. That's a mouthful always to try to get out. And Beverly is an Indigenous lady from Tobic. So she has joined our show. We are, again, super excited to, like, we hang out. She's a good friend of mine and we're tight. But at the same time, I'm just so happy to have Beverly join the show to speak about Indigenous issues. And of course, you know, we all know about the 215 children who were just found, their bodies at the church out west, residential school, excuse me. So things are still pretty raw. And I'm just going to move it over to Beverly now to talk about whatever she wants in relation to this subject or, you know, whatever she wants to bring to the table here right now. So thank you, Courtney, too. Go ahead, Beverly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here, Amour. It was really such an honor to be able to sit on a panel with you today. You just mesmerized me. Like I was sitting here and you just shine like Jen said, you're just shiny and the wisdom that comes from such a young person, it really amazed me. Like, I think I would come to you if I ever needed some advice on, you know, something. You're very well spoken and that shows, you know, that's not only does your beauty show, but your intelligence also shows. And I think that's important also, you know, when we're talking about our issues, that we present ourselves in that way. And you certainly have. I have no question. Well, actually, I do have one question, but I was wondering if do you mind telling us that where you're from?
I certainly do, and I think it's close to home for you.
Yes,
I'm actually from Tilly, New Brunswick, which is just 15 minutes away from Tobic First Nation, up in Perth Andover. I was a bag boy at Save Easy, Clark Save Easy. I rubbed elbows with so many individuals that I'm sure you know the names and share the stories with.
Yes.
And I love your earrings, and I did a little orange in my eyes just for a little bit of an ownership that it is my responsibility to say that I am a white privileged individual who, without born with any grandiosity, already was given a respect that was not earned. And I think that is important to identify, because as I've grown older, I have learned that that is something that I never was taught. We never discussed it at Perth Andover High School. There was a lot of animosity and today with the white community and the Indigenous community. And I think that that is something that I would love to see slowly but surely be disassociated and let those individuals stand, but as well too held accountable for those people who think that their life is better than somebody else's.
Right.
It just makes me almost just shiver with absolute disgust, because growing up, I look back and I never will forget this conversation that I had with somebody that I said that speaking, French and English was more important than learning Indigenous language.
Right.
I will own up to that. And
Right.
that was that pinnacle moment for myself. I never put together that was a connection to somebody's culture.
Right.
So that was a connection to their individuality. That was a connection to their history, and that who they are as a human being and who they are as an Indigenous individual, struggling in a community and struggling in a greater community that doesn't even give them the time of day, let alone understanding the values and beliefs.
Right. Right.
I have never, ever let that conversation die in my heart. And I am convicted with that because it pushed me forward. And it tells me that I am human, I am flawed, and I will make mistakes. But as long as we can admit to the mistakes, be willing to learn and grow, that is the only way that we can see something like this come to the end. Or else it's always going to be pointing fingers, putting walls up, and getting defensive and getting hurt. And that's not what it's about. It's just about respecting the individual holistically as one being.
Right, right. Thank you so much. Like I said, you're very, very wise. So thank you so much. And like I said, it was an honor to be here on the panel with you, and it was an honor to meet you.
Thank you. You're a beautiful individual for expressing yourself and being part of this community and being part of this panel. There is individuals that wouldn't feel that courage and feel that safe space here. And thank you for being one of those, because in the end of the day, it takes voices like yourself. I can't speak for anybody but myself.
Right.
And so if we're going to listen and learn and grow and to atone for the past issues, like what I'm hoping this country will do one day, then we have to give that right away from our voice box and let the individuals from the community speak. Let them be heard, because it's only through you and your community that we will ever learn how to rectify the situation, not by our imposed values, not by our imposed assumptions. And by then is the only time that we can truly step back, see the picture for what it really is painted as, versus what we think we have the brushstroke control of.
That's right. That's right. That's absolutely right. And of course, you would have the same type of experience, expressing who you truly are too.
And that's it. I just have had so many eye-opening epiphanies through my life, just 30 years of existence. And I can only imagine what that must feel like to have your culture ripped away, and then not only ripped away, but told that it's not valued enough to be given back.
Right, right.
I think that's just, it just boggles my mind. And I use that frustration and fear and anxiety about what it must feel like to push myself to learn more, to educate myself on the residential schooling system, to educate what my ancestors had a part of.
Right.
If not, they directly assumpted or assumed with, it doesn't matter. But the fact that it happened, and the fact that it happened on our watch, that's where I don't need to know if my great-great-grandfather was one of the pastors or grandmothers were one of the Catholic priests. In the end of the day, atrocities are atrocities, whether it links to your direct name or not. And as a human being on this planet, respecting this planet and respecting this community and this province and this, it's specifically whatever area you're from, it's up to you to take that responsibility. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. Right. If you make that decision and change in your life, like I finally did, then it can actually open the door to allow these conversations to be had, and showcase to people that it doesn't matter about direct blaming, but it's about simply owning up to it. So the church needs to own up to it, to acknowledge what has been done. It needs to happen. No different than I acknowledge what my issues were. That's the only time my heart could step back and heal, is when I finally said, this was done by me, on my watch, by my conscious self. And that is something I'm not proud of and will never be proud of. But I certainly won't let it destroy any more of my life or any other lives. By debunking it, by educating myself, and by making sure that my voice now speaks for the benefit of the community, not just for the fear-based that I was taught by myself and my family and my community.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beverly, and thank you, Amour, as well. Um, we're again, just some episodes that we do shows with people, they not drag on. I mean, they're always interesting. We have good guests, but some are just so exciting and so fun. And I don't even want to end this call, literally. Like, I just want to keep talking, and it's just so feel good. And even though they're difficult topics, somehow you put such a spin on things that it's like I just feel like laughing and smiling, and you're just so wonderful, Amour, and I am so glad you came.
That's right. Well, I'll never forget when I first met you, Jen, at the hotel, and one of the first things we discussed was our suicidal ideations and how we both have struggled with that.
Yeah.
Then we discussed about how we got there and why we got there. Those are conversations that many people are not able to have yet, not because they don't want to, but maybe because their heart isn't ready to express that.
That's
maybe
right.
They're not healed enough, distanced enough from that situation to be able to say, I too was suicidal. I too tried to take my life. I don't know how many times I walked across the Westmoreland Bridge here in Fredericton and jumped on the other side of the railing and just held and leaned back. I felt the wind on my face. I seen my uncle's house down below on Waterloo Road. I knew that if I jumped, that I was hoping that they might find me, because those are the individuals that I remember distinctly putting that condemnation, that vibe of hatred in my life. Once I was able to step back from that railing and step back from that thought process, I realized that I have so much more to give. And that anger is only going to shut more doors, and it's only going to put more bars up. Yeah. But it doesn't mean the topic doesn't need to be discussed. And so I encourage anybody, if you were listening today, and if you are watching this, please know that you are not alone. There is a helpline number that is available 24/7. There is a kids telephone help number that is available as well too. And if you can't get through to them, which I have called and could not get through, unfortunately, I felt even more disgusted with myself and saying, great, I can't even get this number. So what does it matter about anything else? So I just can only hope that if you can just hold on long enough until you find that right person, or you are feeling confident enough to express that to a healthcare provider that is trained, professional, and sensitive enough about your situation. We're still all human. We're still all learning and growing. Not all nurses are perfect. Not all doctors are perfect. Many of them don't understand how much of an effect some of these experiences, whether it is through the residential schooling system, whether it is through trauma abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse. Abuse is abuse, and it scars the individual, and we're left with that scar forever. Yeah. But to give that scar any more power over our life, more than it already has taken from us, we only get one life. And I believe that every individual on this planet has something to give, whether it's their laughter, their smile, their perspectives, their energy, the enthusiasm. I just would be dismayed to know that my life could have ended that night and many other nights as I struggled with my sexuality, knowing my family was never going to accept it. And they still don't. But that doesn't stop me from being able to be who I am, not because I'm strong, not because I'm educated. That didn't hurt, but it's not the pinnacle moment. It's because I had somebody else believe in me, to give me the confidence to see what they've seen in me. And I can't see everybody watching, but I can feel the energies already. And I certainly hope that you know that if you haven't heard it today, I love you. I love you for who you are. I love you for whatever hairstyle you want to rock. I love you for whatever makeup you want to wear, outfits that you want to express yourself on. Not everybody's going to see that side of you, but you deserve to hear that. And I love you, Jenna. I love you, Courtney, and I love you, Beverly, for thanking and giving the time and giving your voice and allowing others to hear. So thank you so much for allowing me to come on this and to be able to express my story and to listen, more importantly, listen to your story.
Thank you so much, Amour. Yeah, it made me cry a little even, but I'm happy, strangely enough. Thank you so much. We've run out of time, and I need to, bring this to an end for you because I know you have Amour has a speaking engagement. I don't know if you do that as Amour or as Mitchell with Canadian.
Yeah.
As Amour, okay. So I know you have a speaking engagement coming up, a speaker series. So that's with the Canadian Mental Health Association. If anybody ever wants to check it out. Again, Amour, I'm so thrilled and grateful and have so much love for you. Thank you so much. And I'm hoping you will come back again someday. I'm actually going to message you right after this and ask you a question. So, well, I know you're going to be busy, but thank you so much, Beverly, Courtney, to the viewers, to everybody for watching. Thank you for talking so openly about, the they, them, he, she, gender fluidity issues and mental health issues. And thank you so much for your love and positivity and your voice in this world. We need it so much. Truth Talks out. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so
Good night,
much.
everybody.
Bye.